All right, from CHCH Television in Hamilton and the Ticats Audio Network, our friend Clint Bubba O'Neill joins us. And before we get to the other Labor Day games, I got to talk about yours, Bubba, if you don't mind. Ticats falling 41-28 to the Argos in a game that was never in doubt. I didn't watch it all, but I was following the scores. What was your take on the Argos romping to 9-1 at the Coffee Cup donut box on Monday?
Well, you know what, Rod? Hey, first of all, there's a lot of ambient noise going on. They're ripping out every balcony in my place right now. So it's like 24/7. I can't stand it. It's driving me nuts. So I apologize for the extra ambient noise that you might be hearing. A lot of grinding going on. But speaking of grinding, there wasn't a lot of grinding on the football field there. It was tough. There was actually a time there where they got it to within 7 points, 17-10 to start the second half, and that's about as close as they got. Hey, the Argonauts are in a completely different league than the Tiger Cats are in right now when they have a third-string quarterback. I mean, you're getting, I think, the benefit of it in Saskatchewan and some other places where Ottawa actually had a little burst there with the backup quarterbacks. At the end of the day, your quarterback is learning on the job against one of the premier teams in the league. It was great to have the home crowd, kept them in it for a little bit. But you're right. This game really was never close. I was really fearing the fact that if the Argonauts went up early on the Tiger Cats, their offense isn't really built enough to be in a comeback situation. The Argonauts were true to as true blue as they could be. They went up by 17-0 in the first quarter and just kind of did what was required for the rest of the ball game to win and run away with it in the end.
Well, I'm not hearing a lot of angst out of the Hammer unless it's, I'm missing something. Maybe I'm too far away, but they're hosting the Grey Cup, Bubba. Newsflash to everybody.
Yeah.
And it don't look like they're going to be in it. So what's the panic feeling around there?
Well, I think it's controlled. I think there's an understanding. Remember, I mean, and I know you well charted this as we all did in the Canadian Football League. The big offseason move in the league was the acquisition of Bo Levi Mitchell. Right. And the guys played basically a game in a little bit, right, due to injury, and then came back, played a great game, I thought, in Ottawa. And then on one of the final plays of the year, ends up breaking his leg. So it's been really, really unfortunate. And then you get the likes of a Matthew Schultz, and you always want to have, in the Canadian Football League, you need to have an established backup. And he played well, and then he becomes injured. So I think from that point, the fan expectation has sunk. And I think the thoughts of maybe hosting the Grey Cup, they are beginning to dissipate somewhat. We'll say this. It's the Canadian Football League. I will say this. There's a time where Schultz and Bo Levi Mitchell will be back. And it's nothing against Taylor Powell, but the expectations of hosting the Grey Cup have sunk with the fact that you're riding out a third-string quarterback that is learning on the go. Fourth game was this week. So it's tough.
Ty, you're speaking like a true home team radio host. It's like, calm down. Just got to get it together in time. Hey, you've learned, buddy. Good job. Been there. Yay. Just before we switch to the NFL, how would it go over in Hamilton if and when Chad Kelly and the Argos are playing in there and dressing in the Ticats locker room?
Well, they didn't really like it. What they didn't like, too, I don't know if you saw this. I'm sure the TSN highlights, I couldn't watch it again because it angered me so much, was the Ouellette touchdown pass and celebration where they brought out this anvil. I don't know. They had this anvil somewhere on the sidelines. Someone went to the sideline, grabbed an anvil, and as if they were pounding the Tiger Cats, they got this celebration, and it just annoyed people. And as you well know, with the Sask and Winnipeg, and of course the Battle of Alberta. No one wants to see this kind of stuff in your own building. So, and it's tough because the Argos are such a good club, but they really let Ticats Nation know about their dominance, and you know what? Then they were talking a lot of smack, but then again, when you have the record they have, the way that they have played, really, Chad Kelly has been outstanding. Every game that he's completed, they've won. So at some point, you got to just, let bygones be bygones and say, hey, you guys are pretty good and good luck to you.
Well, if you don't like it, stop them. I've been around that dance a long time,
right.
too.
And you're right.
Right.
You're absolutely right. And it becomes that simple there, Rod, when they're that good. And I just hope that at some point, as a Ticats broadcaster, a Hamilton sportscaster, at some point, and I've got a little friendly rivalry going on with the likes of a Mike Hogan, who I know you've had on your show, that, we could rub it in their face eventually at some point. But right now, it's their time.
You're deep in Bills country. I'm deep in Dolphins country. Bitter AFC East rivals. What's the talk about the Bills as we are in week 1 kickoff?
All I'm hoping, Rod, is that, do you remember how much we were in love with the AFC West last year when Russell Wilson went there, and we were like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen in the AFC West? And it turned out to be one of the dog shows of the year. And so you add Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets, who have just a heck of a defense, and he's got some tools there in New York as well. You never know what's coming out of New England. As long as the head coach is Belichick, I still fear. And now this Miami team, who've defeated the Bills and played them pretty competitively with that Skylar Thompson in the playoffs, the Bills are worried. There's no doubt about it. This is no easy jet to the playoffs or to win the AFC East even. So this is going to be extremely competitive. I see some really good football coming up. Home, as always, in the AFC, home field advantage will be massive. With the Miami and the Buffalo thing, it's like Miami coming to Buffalo later in the year when it starts to get a little frigid. And generally, we're going into South Florida when it is hot and humid. The game last year where the Dolphins defeated the Bills was a game where I have never seen so many players just basically lost because of the heat. Players were dropping like flies because of the humidity. And they all talked about it too. That is true home field advantage. And in Miami, certainly, they practice in that stuff. The Bills certainly don't.
Oh, man, I was at that game, and the players, it was bad. There were Bills fans on the concourse, passed out, and it wasn't drinking. I know those Buffalo people and Bill, it wasn't that. It was the heat.
Might have been a little mix.
They were propping them up and fanning. That was the game of the infamous butt punt. I have to be very careful with how I say that. It's a definite home team advantage. However, don't forget, Dolphins went up there in the playoffs, and it was a swing. The Bills won one in the cold, right? So it does play the other way, right?
It certainly can, but we're all on a red alert here. Again, this is another team. The Bills are, in my opinion, and again, I've talked to enough people in Western New York, and obviously being a Bills fan myself, it's going back to the Joe Ferguson days. That's how old I am. But the expectation is AFC Championship or bust. That's just what it is with this team at this point. They have drafted well. They have added a real good tight end through the draft. I think that Josh Allen, another year removed from in terms of getting experience and being one of the top athletes at that position, and really assuming that leadership position as well too. Getting Von Miller back, losing him last year was massive. To losing him to what is a very good defense. So most of the guys are back on defense as well too. You got the Hamlin story as well too. He's back with the club. They're a motivated crew. But again, AFC Championship or bust. And you know what? Will it be Kansas City again? Will it be Miami? Boy, that would be a lot of fun, Rod.
Well, everybody's in first place this week. Bubba, thanks for the time. I appreciate you. Say hey to Twos for me, please.
Absolutely. And Twos loves you guys. I mean, we were talking about it on the broadcast about the Labor Day rivalry and how fun it was, not only from the Hamilton and Toronto perspective, but also from the Winnipeg and Sask. What that game, and I know you've been talking about it, that game had everything. That crowd at that field, the overtime, the headbutt, what a game. And I just finished doing CFL this week and had Glenn Suter on the broadcast. And he's waving that green pretty thick. That was a special game. And hopefully let's see the Banjo Bowl be just as good.
That's why we call them classics. Have a good one, Bubba. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.